SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of iGaming Daily, where, and I feel like I start every single podcast saying this, we're in sunny, Lisbon now. It was Barcelona last year, but we're in sunny Lisbon, and it is sunny, it's roasting, but we're at the SBC Summit, and I'm joined by Jessica Welman, the editor of SBC Americas, and Callum Williams, the senior journalist at Payment Expert. How are you both doing today? You enjoying Lisbon?
Yeah, happy. I'll need the entirety of the trip to just walk the floor because it's so massive. So I've just dabbled so far in the event and ready to see what more there is.
Yeah, I've got lost a few times already. I've only been here about 2 hours, so yeah, it's you say about 10 times bigger than Barcelona.
10 times,
maybe. I don't know.
10 times bigger than Barcelona. I know. I think it's like 2 or 3 times the size. I mean, they've doubled the amount of people that are expected to come here this week, which is incredible. I remember my first SBC Summit Barcelona, and that was just after COVID. And that was, I think there was only half the size then that there was expected due to restrictions. I think it was like 5,000 there at the time. So to see the growth year on year and what I'm seeing now, it is no understatement that it is massive. Yeah. And I've only managed to get to the casino halls because I'm running left, right and centre with interviews in that section. But if it's, you're doubling, you're tripling that, because I think you've got 2 other halls with the sports betting section, and then you've got the affiliate and payment zones as well. Mm-hmm. My legs already hurt, and I really shouldn't have played football yesterday because a rookie move. Before we delve into the Aristocrat Light Wonder topic, just a quick shout out to our supporter of the iGaming Daily Podcast, and that's Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. For listeners out there, you can still claim your first month of Optimove by visiting optimove.com/SBC. Again, I'll leave links in the description below. But no, thank you for joining us. And we're going to talk, we're not really going to do it the usual way we would at an event, where we talk about kind of trends that are happening or kind of what we've been up to. Because one, we've just got here, but also there's an interesting development in Americas, Jess, in America with Light and Wonder and Aristocrat, correct?
Yes. So for those keeping track, Light and Wonder has a number of lawsuits pending. The 2 that really have been getting a lot of play are one from Aristocrat and one from Evolution, both saying, you stole our stuff, dude. Mm-hmm. In this Aristocrat one, what happened today is that a judge has granted what's called a preliminary injunction. And the action is essentially that Light and Wonder is not allowed to offer its Dragon Link game anymore, or not anymore, until the case reaches a resolution. The matter at hand in the case is DragonTrain and this other game, Dragon Link, and whether or not Light and Wonder, by hiring a former Aristocrat engineer, has basically copycatted the game. What some outlets are getting wrong about this is not a resolution in the case. The judge is simply saying, looking at the merits of the case, it stands to reason that Aristocrat could win and that they have a claim. And since they do, until this case is done, you can't offer this game anymore. Light and Wonder is going to appeal that injunction, and then obviously they're going to continue to go to trial with the rest of the case, and Aristocrat taking a bit of a victory lap, but perhaps in its communications overstating exactly what this means.
Yeah, I mean, just listen, we're going to talk about payments later with Callum, but this is an interesting story, and it's one that ever since I joined the industry about 4.5 years ago, I was a writer on slot beats, and my first impression when looking at slots was like, how the hell do they get past copyright infringements anywhere due to kind of how closely they tie stuff to films? And an example, I'm not going to name the company, but they made a slot title and it was pretty much based off, you'll like this, it's a cartoon. So it fits my narrative. Of course it's a
cartoon. It's always a cartoon with you.
But the film Surf's Up, I don't know if are you aware of it?
Yeah. I'm cognizant it exists, and that's about it.
I have watched the film.
Yeah,
you know how they got around this? Because you're the only person that's watched Surfed Up and even noticed.
Shia LaBeouf was in it. It was fantastic, like penguins surfing. But they literally, it was a like for like copying of Surf's Up for that slot title. And even in my head, I was like, how are they getting around this? Because it's so close to the actual product that it has to be copyright infringement in some way. and there's no license to it because it's not the actual Surf's Up film.
Let me clarify. So do these games both involve dragons? Sure.
Yeah.
That's not really what the issue is. The issue is the mechanic and the random number generator, how often and frequency of payments, what triggers those payments. That's what they're challenging. I mean, they are like, and by the way, it's also even a dragon, but that's kind of the tangential piece of this. And what's at play here is less that, because I think that you know better than I do, James. It seems like there's waves in slots where like it's going to be barnyard critters this year and everybody's going to have farm animals. And then next year it's going to be, dragons and unicorns and things like that. And so you have those kind of look-alike games, and that's a bit of a different issue. This one is like the design and the mechanic and the thing that makes this game compelling is what you are stealing.
Yeah, I think my point was kind of...
I wanted to clarify because I realized...
It was a good thing to clarify. I think mine was because it was so closely tied to the film that it was indistinguishable to me, being a huge cartoon Surf's Up fan, that it baffled me how they get around it. But when you actually come to the mechanical side of things, that is a lot... I think it's a lot actually easier.
I mean, there's like spreadsheets in this, in the evidence that's like, hi, this woman used to work here and now she works here and she left with this spreadsheet. And if you look at their spreadsheet, it's set up the exact same way. Yeah. It's a bigger trail than, well, maybe I just also thought about how fun it would be if penguins surfed.
I guess I would also ask a question, Jess, just jumping in. Is there any like type of trademark or copyright rules regarding those type of mechanics, or is it a bit more vague? So
that's a bit of what the Evolution lawsuit is about a product called Lightning Roulette, where it's a new game. The concept of the game itself is copyrighted and patented. And then they're arguing that Lightning X, Roulette X is what they call it, the Light and Wonder product, is the same idea where it's roulette, but you can hit like a bonus essentially and get paid a bunch. Right. So yeah, you can patent the game itself. You can also file copyrights and stuff on names and things like that. But
it's a weird one because it's no joke that there's so many slots and so many different mechanics flooding the market each day, let alone each week, let alone each day. Sorry, go that way. That you're always going to have some crossover. So, and I don't know what it's like in the US. I am literally going off my Suits knowledge, the Netflix show. Well, it is a Netflix show to me, where it's like, is it like a 30 to 35% kind of similarity? Then you kind of cross over to the patent thing. You have to get it under 30% difference.
I don't know. I mean,
this is my Suits knowledge.
This is also where,
into, like, US law.
For those of you who listen to Charlie and I, at least once an episode, I have to remind everyone, I am not a lawyer, so don't quote me on this one. They didn't, in this particular one, they didn't speak about a threshold of percentage, but that might be the case.
Yeah, I think, again, I am going off Suits knowledge here, but it's also kind of away from iGaming. There's a current video game lawsuit with Nintendo where they're doing a patent infringement on a company called... Can't remember the company. They created a game called Pal World, which was very, very similar to how Pokemon worked, but their patent infringement was how they threw the Pokeballs to capture these creatures. And it's kind of that patent infringement where it's over a certain percentage that they're claiming is very similar to their game. And kind of the point I was getting at is that there's so many games in the slot sector which you can't get under that 30%, I don't think, if it was a 30% margin, because everyone's trying to create an Aztec game. Everyone's trying to create some type of genre, if it's a fishing game, if it's a fruits game. And then when you look at the mechanics themselves, there's very little similarity within mechanics. Like, there's tweaks to make them different. You had the big Mega Waves one, which broke the boundaries. But then you've got cluster pops or pop wins as well from Avatar UX. It's very similar. You have tumbling mechanics, which are just avalanche mechanics. I mean, they're so different.
Well,
they're not so different.
This was kind of addressed in the lawsuit too, where Light and Wonder was saying, it's not a trade secret if you can reverse engineer something. So if you can watch a game and be like, oh, these things fall, and you figure out a way to make them fall, you can't call that a trade secret. Yeah. But what Aristocrat was saying was the specific payout frequency and that sort of thing, you can't reverse engineer that. And so it does I mean, Light and Wonder was trying to argue this stuff wasn't trade secrets to begin with. And really, this one's a bit different from the Evolution one in that they're kind of claiming malfeasance, that they hired this person to create this game for them. Yeah. Versus, the Evolution one seems more like a copycat lawsuit.
Yeah. I think that whole person being involved in the whole story kind of leans towards Aristocrat in some way, which interesting to see what'll happen there. But again, I think when you say you can't reverse engineer kind of like payments side of things, I'm like, is that not what RTP and volatility is in general anyway?
I mean, is it public knowledge that the RTP of a slot is 83%? Sure. How a machine specifically, how often it hits, one bonus or the other to get to 83% is the part that can't be, like, just watching the game, you can't necessarily reverse engineer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I still think that kind of, for me, that still ties into kind of the volatility level of an actual slot itself, because the higher volatility slots, the less frequent you're going to get an actual hit. Lower volatility you do. But I kind of get the point, you can't reverse engineer it. But they're the whole points of volatility and RTP, linking them together to kind of create the outcome of you're going to get paid more, you're going to get paid less, but bigger wins.
You might understand the brief more than I did. Like, the legal part was what I kind of followed. It's, the things about like hit frequency and stuff like that that's in there. It's a little more dense for my knowledge.
If we wasn't at the Lisbon event and my morning wasn't filled so much with like video interviews, I really wish I could just sit down and look at that brief. And it's something I'm going to do, because I think we should probably touch on it again in more detail once there's further updates. I mean,
these are going to be a big deal once they come to fruition. To give people kind of a timetable on this, by the way, these suits take months. And really, a lot of what has been procedurally happening since it was filed in March was there's a motion to dismiss, and then Light and Wonder lost that. Essentially, there was some technicality things that, by and large, Aristocrat was granted the right to move forward. Now, Aristocrat has won its challenge that, like, you can't do this while we figure it out. Next is the process that's called discovery, where each group has to kind of provide all of the evidence that they would potentially use in the case. So that takes an incredibly long time. And because it's highly sensitive material, there's a whole other level of bureaucracy to this, where there's a lot of motions to seal and to keep confidential and that sort of thing. So I think we're a very long way from a conclusion, which means for Light and Wonder, if they lose the appeal on the injunction, a very popular game is going to be off the books for them for potentially a long period of time.
Yeah, interesting developments. I think for me, this is going to be interesting once it comes to a conclusion. If it goes into Aristocrat's way, I think it sets a precedence then. And like I started with the show saying, from my point of view, there's so many potential copyright infringements within slots. I'm curious if this is going to open a gateway for a lot of other companies.
We shall see.
We definitely will see, and we're keeping an eye on it. Definitely in Americas.
Casino Beats has a version of this as well. Yeah.
iGaming Daily. I will be keeping an eye on this for iGaming Daily, because this is my bread and butter. I love it. But we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, Callum Williams is going to step forward more, and we're going to talk a bit about the payment summit that's happening today. Today?
It is today.
Yeah, today at the Lisbon event. So stay tuned.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Welcome back. Like I mentioned before the break, we're going to be talking Payments Summit, and this is an interesting one, Callum, because we've never actually done a Payments Summit before at any events, I don't think, have we?
Yeah, we've had payments.
We've had payments tracks.
Yeah, we've had payment tracks and payments panels and stuff like that, but never really a dedicated Payments Summit, which obviously is named after Payment Expert, our site, which is just a kind of almost a testament to the growth of the site and how well it's performed over the past couple of years. So yeah, it's really pleasing to see that type of brand in there as well.
Yeah. I mean, payments has just been something that's been growing and growing since I joined. Certainly in the casino sector as well. Like it's huge, and you involve crypto into the scene, which I'm not going to pretend I'm going to be a crypto expert here. I may have dabbled, but like nothing on you, Callum. But just give us an idea of some of the interesting conversations that have been happening today anyway, because I know you've been on a panel session, but also give us an idea of a general trend that's happening within the payment sector?
Yeah, well, I sat in the first opening Payment Expert Summit panel regarding mature markets, and it was funny because some of the panelists didn't really have an answer to the mature markets. They kind of almost said there are no mature markets when it pertains to regulatory requirements involving both the gambling and the payment industries, which is all fair enough. There really isn't, because regulations are just so ever evolving, whether you want to talk about the gambling white paper in the UK in terms of affordability checks, and then payments. There's the Payment Service Directive 3 that's about to come into Europe, obviously following the back of PSD2, which introduced open banking regulations and regulations to instant payments. So yeah, that was a really good conversation, which was moderated by Andrew McGeechan of NeoSurf. I'm sure you'll...
iGaming Daily, we're a big fan of NeoSurf and Andrea.
Yeah, shout out to Andrea. But no, yeah, there was also representatives from Leo Vegas. Also, there was some representatives from Trustly as well, just kind of giving the whole operator-supplier dynamic in terms of how an operator and supplier can help one another in terms of not only adapting to these mature markets, but also emerging markets as well, like Brazil, for instance. That's a market that's about to explode in the sports betting aspect. So yeah, they're really trying to figure out that fine balance between what can the gambling operators help for payment operators to enter these markets, but then how can they remain compliant as well with the regulators. Yeah,
I've had a few conversations already today when I was doing interviews, and the amount of times crypto has come up in our interviews is it baffles me, because I don't know, I felt like I was in the belief that crypto was kind of on the decline a bit. Yeah, I don't know if it's getting a second wave, and what to call it, the bull run or something like that.
Well, yeah, the bear market is when it's down, it's declining, and then the bull market is when it's on the up. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was fair to say the crypto market was almost seemingly dead during 2022 and 2023 because of the high profile collapses of FTX and Terra Luna. That just kind of plummeted the market. It's lost all investor confidence. But I think what you may be hearing from some of these gambling operators now is the interest in crypto as a payment method, because it just provides so many beneficiaries when it pertains to instant payment, like it happens in mere seconds. It's just something that's not... there's instant payments within Europe and within SEPA and stuff like that, but crypto is a peer-to-peer transaction with no intermediaries involved. That is just a quick transaction that will easily just grant the player, for instance, instant gratification, whether it's deposits or whether it's payout as well. So crypto as a payment method was initially, that was what crypto was meant to be when Bitcoin came about in 2008. It was meant to be this pure peer-to-peer transaction. Now it's just being used for investor and stuff like that.
I'm going to ask the noob question.
Okay.
So if you're a payments processor, how do you make money on a peer-to-peer crypto exchange if the idea is that there's not an intermediary?
That is a good question, to be fair, Jess. I mean, it's something that a gambling operator may have to partner with a crypto payment merchant or a crypto payment provider.
Okay.
And there may be some beneficiary there. I think that's a good question because there hasn't really been a good example of that, to be honest. But it is something that when crypto was first introduced, it was meant to be this peer-to-peer transaction, like no intermediaries, no banks involved. So it's interesting to see that some of these payment service providers, I mean, I know Revolut of the UK, FinTech Revolut, they're heavily invested into crypto in terms of trying to make it as a crypto payment method. It just because of the benefits it provides the users, and at the end of the day, they want the users to be happy. They want to come back and use their type of services. So
I've seen, I had a conversation with a company. I'm not going to say who they are because
you're just all sorts of mystery and intrigue today.
I'm not name dropping anyone, but yeah, I'll lure into a few things. But we had a conversation because of the new European regulations coming through. They've had to change their whole business model of how they adapt. So instead of being that kind of middle person for a transaction between operators and kind of crypto companies, they're now becoming more crypto consultants and kind of helping operators around the new regulations.
Would that be in MiCA? Is that? That's the European framework that's coming in.
Yeah, MiCA.
It's coming in December. Yeah, it's basically, it's the first type of comprehensive crypto regulatory framework where it requires listings and it requires, you need licenses now to operate in some of these markets. Yeah. I do believe there was one. It was Tether, which is the largest stablecoin issuer in the world. Their European stablecoin, which is pegged to the European fiat currency, the euro.
I'm gonna nod and say, yeah, like I know what you're on about right now.
It's basically, a stablecoin is basically a cryptocurrency that's tethered to a real life currency like the euro, so it maintains its stability.
Okay, yeah.
They're being more pushed as a payment method, for instance, because there's no volatility involved.
That's with the altcoins kind of thing. So like the Doges,
they're just meme coins. They're just
they're quite volatile though. They're the altcoins.
Oh yeah, they're extremely volatile.
Yeah. Is that the official term? Meme
glorified get rich quick schemes, really. Yeah. But Mika's very, very important to how crypto in the future in Europe especially is going to be viewed as a type of payment product, because they have to be regulated now, these tokens. So
well, and I can see the ancillary effects too, that if it is successful, then operators in other markets like the US that are very resistant to crypto will be like, okay, well, here's one way that you could do it. And I know for me, at least when I speak with smaller operators, the number one thing they say is the biggest reason we can't be profitable is because our payment processing charges are just through the roof.
Yeah.
What is it in the US? It's different to the European ones, isn't it?
PayPal is a big one.
Yeah. Is it the interchange fees with MasterCard and Visa?
Yeah. And then, credit card fees and that sort of thing. But you get a payment processing company to handle all those. PayPal gets very expensive. And it's one of those, like, you can get reduced rates if you're going in bulk. Mm-hmm. But small operators that are in, 2 states, 3 states is just very difficult. So, the opportunity to get a peer-to-peer fee, fund method without that kind of fee, it's just very difficult for small operators. I mean, licensing and all the other things on top of payments fees, but they say payments fees are the worst.
We recently did a report from Capgemini as well, time of their payments review of 2025, and they highlighted account-to-account payments, A2A payments, as this surging favorable payment method among users, which it completely takes out those interchange fees from Visa and MasterCard. And it's pretty much established that this could represent a billions upon billions of losses in interchange fees for the likes of Visa and MasterCard. So there's something to watch out if operators are starting to get a bit worried about some of these attached fees.
I'll leave the link to that article in the description for this podcast for you. We are going to round up though and finish it off. But before we do, Callum, give us a rundown of what listeners who are attending the event can expect from the Payment Expert Summit.
Yeah, the team, me, Ted Clay and Kieran O'Connor, we're pretty much covering most of the panels here at SBC Summit, Payment Expert Summit. And then maybe moving away from Payment Expert as well. We're also covering some of this stuff on the Super Stage, Luis Figo and the new UFC bantamweight champion, Merab.
I pronounce his last name wrong.
I was like, are you one of the MMA people in the team too?
I do like me UFC, but I think Joe's are.
Yeah, I'm more of a boxing man then.
That's true as well. And then just keep an eye out on a Payment Expert for some of the good panels and good interviews we might have on the way.
I brought my Tony Hawk Underground 2. So hopefully Tony Hawk can sign that for me.
You want to try and get an autograph?
Yeah.
And then sell it on eBay.
Big fan of keep it. I'm a big fan of Tony Hawk. Big fan of him when I was younger. Well, we're going to round up today. So Callum, Jess, thank you for joining us today, and have a good rest of your week in Lisbon. And to the listeners out there, tune in tomorrow where I'll be back on the conference room floor at SBC Summit. Until then, thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily Podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.